Okay, here's one of the more challenging ideas. We're going to simplify using some variables here. Let's look at A. A, we have the cube root of 64y to the 6th. What I want to do is to get everything in here in that perfect cube format. Remember, with exponents, when you pull it out of that radical, you're actually dividing by it. Because when you multiply, you add them. So we do the opposite. Okay? So 64, I could take the cube root of. That just gives me 4. So I'm going to pull it out of there. Y to the 6th, I'm going to rewrite that to really clearly see. You can think of it two different ways. We can divide by that root right away. So we see that there are 2 y to the thirds. We're just doing the opposite of our power to a power rule. The reason we're doing that is because taking the cube root of y cubed makes them cancel out. So we're just left with 4y squared. Another way to think of it is using the fact that when you multiply, you add exponents. You can think of y to the 6th as y to the 3rd times y to the 3rd. Remember, cube root of y to the 3rd cancels. That's the objective here. So we can pull each one of those out. But we're pulling out 2, so that's where that squared comes in. Now for part B, it's a little bit different. Part B is in an exponent form. And all of those exponents are divisible by 3. So this is a really nice one just to distribute that exponent to each term. So we would go 27 to the 1/3 times p to the 3rd times 1/3 times q to the 12th times 1/3. We just distributed it. And when you do that, you have to multiply your exponents. 27 to the 1/3 power gives me 3. 3 times 1/3 is just 1. Q to the 12 times 1/3. 12 times 1/3 is 12 thirds, which is just 4. Alright, now let's look at C. For C, we have the 4th root of m to the 4th divided by n to the 8th. We can't simplify in there, so we're going to do our quotient rule where we take the 4th root at the top divided by the bottom. The 4th root of m to the 4th, that's just going to cancel. That gives me m. Now for the bottom here, what we want to make sure is that our exponent, can we divide that evenly by 4, excuse me. We want to divide our root by that exponent. Since we can, 8 and 4 divide really nicely, we're going to do that. Remember, another way to think of it is to rewrite it using your power to a power rule. So we would go 8 divided by 4. That leaves me with 2. There are 2 n's in there that we can pull out. Okay? Seriously guys, the easiest thing is just think about, can I divide that exponent by the root? If you can, good. If not, we'll rewrite it, and we'll show you on the next slide. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. And that's what you pull out of there. I think this is the easiest way, I really do. For D, we have a lot going on. We're going to take it piece by piece. We're going to start with our numbers, 14 and 2. We can divide those really nicely. The big is on top, so we always go top divided by bottom. 14 divided by 2 is just 7. Now let's look at those x's. We have an x on top and an x on bottom. That's our quotient rule. That tells us to take our top exponent and subtract the bottom. So x to the 1st power, even though if it's not there, it's a 1, minus 3/4. That leaves me with 1 minus 3/4 is 1/4. And that's a positive, so it's going to stay where it's at. Y has no other exponents in there. And z was a negative on the bottom, so we're going to move it to the top to turn it positive. And that's my answer. Now with this one here, we're going to be faced with some that we can't quite simplify. Same rule applies. We want to be able to take each of those exponents and divide it by that root. 4, no way. We can't take the 5th root without getting a decimal. So that one's going to stay there. Now a to the 8th. We cannot divide 8 divided by 5. So we're going to rewrite it so we can. A to the 8th can be rewritten using our root as a to the 5th times a to the 3rd. Remember, you're just adding your exponents, so you can pull out the biggest root you can. Then let's look at the b's. 14 you cannot divide by 5, so we're going to pull out the biggest number that's divisible by 5 and then just subtract to find what's left. So the closest 5th power that we can factor out of there would be 10, because 10 divided by 5 works out evenly. So b to the 10th times b to the 4th. Remember, you're just adding exponents. 10 plus 4 is 14, so I know I'm correct. C to the 5th, I can divide 5 and 5, so I'm going to leave that one alone. Okay? So now we're going to pull out and factor out whatever we can. We cannot take the 4th root or the 5th root of 4, so we leave that there. We can take the 5th root of this a to the 5th. We pull it out of there. The 5th root of a to the 5th is a. The a to the 3rd is what's left over. B to the 10th, I can take the 5th root of that. I'm going to go 10 divided by 5. That leaves me with 2. B to the 4th, nope, I cannot go 4 divided by 5 and get an even number. C to the 5th, yep, I can factor that out too. C to the 5th, the 5th root of that is just C. This is my answer. Think about rewriting it. Now the bottom one here, what I would do is I would use my product rule. My quotient rule. I'm going to take the cube root of the top divided by the cube root of the bottom. Now, here's the problem. If I try to simplify this like I did the top one, I'm still going to have a radical on the bottom. So we want to use that idea of multiplying by something to make this a perfect cube to get rid of that radical. It's a little different with the exponents. Remember, all we were doing was dividing the exponents by that root. So we want to figure out, what can I multiply the top and bottom? It's got to be in cube root form in order to get a number that I can divide by 3. Closest one would probably be 9. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So what we would want to multiply, remember, you're just adding those exponents, would be the cube root of y. Cube root of x times the cube root of y is the cube root of x times y. Cube root of y to the 8th times the cube root of y would be the cube root of y to the 8 plus 1, which is just 9, right? And then to figure out what's left on the bottom, I'm just going to divide. 9 divided by 3 gives me y to the 3rd. That's my answer. This is hard stuff, guys. So you're going to have to maybe look at this again, use your textbook, give it a try. Questions on Monday.